Mark, I am excited that you are here. This is going to be a great episode for everyone because of your mindset and the way that you approach life. You're here to give us some real gems. So all of you listening, you get out your paper, you get out that pencil or pen because you're going to want to take a lot of notes. Mark, thanks for being with us.
Well, Diana, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It is great to talk to your audience. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I've known you for years. In
You have.
fact, the interesting part is you had a thriving real estate career. You still do. Yet back in the day, there was a moment that came into your life that you realized that life as you knew it was about ready to change. And that change was a big change. How did you process? Take us back to that time when everything was going your way.
So it was great. So fortunately, when I got into real estate, I did get to meet Mike Ferry, and through that got into one-on-one coaching. And what was funny was my third coach was your husband, Tony, and we really worked together. And that was actually the first time that I had a problem with my vision. I ended up with cataracts, and all of a sudden I couldn't read the contract. And Tony sat down with me and we walked through it, and he said, okay, have your assistant write down in black marker the phone numbers, the names of the people you're going to call. And when you're doing contracts, highlight everything in yellow. And I remember I went out on a listing appointment, and they were very enthusiastic and wanted to hire me to be their agent. And I said, okay, point. I pointed and I said, here, go ahead and initial there and sign there. And they go, should I initial where you're pointing or should I initial where it's yellow? I go, no, just go for the yellow. So that was the beginning. And luckily I ended up with cataract surgery and I got my vision back. And that really set me up on the road to learn skills, to learn my scripts, and really perfect my trade so that if in the future I lost my vision, I knew how to handle it.
Well, so you lost it, you got it back, but then things started disappearing again, right?
Yes. And so I've always had a challenge with vision. I found out when I was 17, and I'm now 62, that I had a problem. And so things would come out from the sides. I didn't realize I couldn't see. I had blind spots, and all of a sudden things would come out of the blind spots, and all of a sudden you would appear, and it would startle me. So once I was diagnosed and I was aware of it, that answered a lot of questions. But I always started from the very beginning, being on the phones 3 hours a day. And I had a coach who said, Mark, if you don't have an appointment for later that day, you have to go out again and do another hour of lead generating. And I couldn't get back on the phones, and that's when I started door knocking. And that was so fortunate. And as I got out and got to talk to people and meet people on a one-on-one basis, it just really changed my life. And that became how I really established my business.
Well, you definitely care about people. There's no doubt about that. Yet through all of these things that you've encountered, what are some of the emotions that you've had to wrestle with?
I think the hard part is, look, there's been times when I've been out door knocking and I didn't see a curb and I've tripped and fell on someone's front lawn, spread out with my papers and notepads. But I never let that stop me. I always got right back up, looked around to see who saw me. Usually it was nobody. So I got back up and continued. And that was just very important. It just taught me to sometimes I had to slow down a little bit to be a little bit more cautious when I went. And I continued to door knock even after I gave up my driver's license when I was about 48 or 49. At that point, I would take Uber, and I figured I could carry 67 notepads and 67 flyers, and I would go out to my farm area and start door knocking and just remember where I left off and the next day continue at the exact same spot. And I probably did that for another 7 years.
Now, you can't see the steps. You can't
No.
really see the curb. Were you able to actually see the individuals? Did you have to be
Yes, back
close?
then I could, but stairs going up are easier because there's contrast. Stairs going down are a challenge because they wash out. So I always learned it was easier to cut across your grass or make sure I went up and down your driveway and not take your stairs because they could be treacherous.
So you just kept compensating for
Yes.
whatever life put in front of you.
That was the option. Fortunately, I had some great parents. So many people need therapy. I can never go to therapy and complain about my parents. From the time I was diagnosed, they always said, Mark, no matter what happens, we will always be here for you and we can rely on you. And my father came from nothing and worked hard, and he was actually dyslexic. And the only reason he made it through school was because my grandmother would read to him. From that, he had like an incredible memory. And so if you came to him, he said, just tell me what's going on. And he always learned how to figure things out. So he always appreciated hard work. He did not like excuses. And that's how he raised us. And so he just taught us to figure it out. And he was there to support you. But if you quit, he would walk away and said, you're right.
So you literally had been brought up with it doesn't matter what's happening. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep stepping forward no matter what.
Absolutely, and that was very important, and that just really taught me confidence and everything else. If I could share a quick story, so early on when I was in training, it may have been even before I had Tony, I actually got one of your cassette tapes of you lead generating, and my coach shared it with me, and I was listening to it and say, "Oh my gosh, this Dianna is so strong. I could never do it." However, I kept listening to the tape over and over again. And one time I was on a listing appointment and I actually was stuck. And all of a sudden, your words came into my head and I said it, not as strong as you. And do you know what happened? I didn't get slapped. They actually responded. And I go, wow, this works. And from that, I got stronger and more bold. And what's funny, Dianna, a couple of years later, you were stealing my scripts because they now became my own scripts. So thank you very much. You were a big part of my early days in giving me the confidence to keep going.
Well, you know, I so believe in every single person that has that desire because that's something that you can't teach, and you definitely have it. So, Mark, what are some other defining moments in your life that have helped you become who you are?
Well, I think after I was the manager of the company coming in as a CPA and as the controller, and ended up becoming the sales manager without ever selling, and sitting at a superstar retreat, hearing them talk about making 100, making a half a million, making a million. I realized I was in the wrong spot. I needed to go into sales, get out of my comfort level, and do it. And so that's when I decided to set a plan, join at that time business planning, and go out and start doing real estate. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So that was one thing. And then not letting that stop you. After my first year that I had incredible success, my second year, I started to believe all the congratulations that I was getting, and I stopped working quite as hard, and I went into a slump. And I really panicked at that point, and I wasn't able to sleep or anything. And my wife says, you got to go talk to your parents. And so I did. And my father said, how much money do you need to get over this? And I said, about $5,000. And he said to me, you're carrying on like this over $5,000? And I said, yes. He goes, I'm going to give you 10, but don't come back again. And from that point on, I never took my foot off the pedal. If things were going slow or I wasn't doing well, I would just immediately go out and start lead generating, and everything fixed itself after that. And I never had to come back to him asking for money. So that was a very important lesson.
You know, what's interesting, though, is we do allow little things. And 5,000 back then was a big thing, yet your dad said that you're letting this little thing. I love the way he said that to you. And you've never really allowed little things now to get in your way.
Right.
The things that you're accomplishing is amazing to me and what you've been through. So let's kind of fast forward as you
Please.
go through this real estate career and you're building a team and people are helping you. You've become a great leader. There was a message that Helen Keller gave that it would be better to be blind and have a vision than to have your sight with no vision. You
No,
are
and that's
able.
what's so. No, I think that's such an important thing. And fortunately, along the years, being involved with first Mike Ferry, then Keller Williams, and being exposed to so many great people and other agents, I always wanted to be better and get better. And so I could always look up to other people and see what other people did. And the key is if they could do it, then there was a way for me to figure out and do better. And that was always important. And so my father always taught us to be in business and to go out and provide a great life for us. And so I think that lesson and the modeling I got in my real estate career just really helped me always want to do more and become better.
Well, and see, I love the way that you said that. You're going to be able to do more as you become better. You've always worked on yourself. I've seen you in all the
Right.
classes. I mean, in Nashville, you were right there the minute you heard it was about becoming more. Class after class, you have someone with you helping you, taking notes. You must be able to internalize it very well, though, because you really can't take notes. So you memorize quickly, I'll bet.
Yeah, I mean, that fortunately from over the years, I've relied on that as my vision has gone work. And I try to focus on the one or two things I really want to remember that pertain to me. So obviously, when we go to a class or a seminar, if you focus on too many things, you get nothing done. And so I've really come up with the one or two things, and I will think about it and process it. And that will allow me to retain it and develop it further. And then I work with my two daughters, and then I will sit down with them, and then we'll create a plan around that.
See, that is so important, and it's such a great thing for people to listen to right now. Don't go away thinking you're going to do everything. Go away with one or two things and implement those. Now, you were in bold. I know you did the trust walk.
Yes.
That I bet you were really good at that. Everybody else was wanting to open up their eyes and see. You just went for it. Let's talk
So it
about.
was a little more challenging when I was the leader. So I usually had to play the blind victim because they didn't trust me to go in and out all the chairs. But what you learn very quickly from that, some people are really good at guiding you, and some people really aren't. And that's an important lesson. That if someone has the patience and will just sort of explain to you what's going on, then it's easy. And when they just are pulling you and pushing you, it's not a good experience for anyone. And so by slowing down, explaining, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah, and just for our listeners, the fact of it is the trust walk is where one person is stated that they're blind and the other person is to guide and direct them through all sorts of obstacles. Now, obviously, you said you played the blind person very well, yet you took a trip to Thailand and Japan,
Yes.
and literally, that's who you were. What? You were going through caves, you were going up and down rocks, you were doing things that nobody else desired to do. You had a lot of faith that you could make it through. So I want to just go in for just a moment. What role did faith play as you were doing all of these extravagant things that other people were going, I don't dare do that?
No, I think what was important, look, you have to learn trust, and you have to, and one of the things that we always talked about in real estate was having blind faith. Just jump in and go. And so whenever I would use blind faith and jump in, it always worked out. And even if there were setbacks or it didn't work, I could always fail forward when I gave it my all and didn't not go forward. And that's the key. So luckily, Mo Anderson, when I came to her about 2.5 years ago, saying I had a problem and I wanted to talk to her. And just before I was able to talk to her, we went through the family reunion, and all of a sudden, all the answers started coming to me. And so when I got to talk to Mo, she said, I thought you were going to quit real estate. I go, no, 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 I'm not quitting. I found the answers and this is what I'm working on. And she put me in touch with Jim, who is a writer and author and who went blind. So we talked, and from him, he told me all the things that he's doing and that he was traveling and he traveled and did everything. He just did things a little bit differently. And that gave me the courage to continue to travel and go for it. And so when this opportunity came up, I said, great, I will go and I will just figure out. And if something just seems unsafe or too difficult, I won't do it. And as it turned out, I did everything. Nothing turned out to be too difficult. And if you do things in smaller steps, not look at the whole problem or the whole challenge and take it in smaller bite-sized pieces, all of a sudden you can accomplish it. And so I would take it one step at a time with my guide, and we made it to the top, and we climbed to the top of for the waterfall. We went to the geyser, we hiked down to the hot spring pools, walked through the caves, got on and off about 8 different kinds of boats. So it really was life-changing getting to experience it and do all that I did.
Okay, so you were changing boats. That means that things aren't solid. I
No,
mean,
they're definitely not solid. And
no. I mean, you're going through rocky terrain, a
yes.
waterfall with water slipping on rocks. I mean, you could fall. What was going through your mind? Did you ever have a chance like, oh, I'm a little frightened? I mean, were you
You
a
know
little
what?
bit human?
Not really. They assigned me one of the drivers because we were going up when we went up north in Thailand. We were in jeeps, and one of the drivers was my guide, and he says, "Mark, we got this. We're going to take it step by step." And he was so reassuring as we were going, and as we started, everything was, "Oh my God, Mark, you're doing so well." And what you got to remember, as that you're being guided, I would slip on rocks, but so were other people. Slipping is not a problem. It's only when you fall. And so when you're so rigid and afraid, now you have a chance to fall. And when you're open to what could happen and you don't panic when you slip a little bit, then you can react and recover. And I'm pretty nimble from all my door knocking and stuff. I can trip, but I usually don't fall. And so tripping's okay. And so between the two of us, we made it to the top. And when things were tough, he just said, okay, we're going to go slower here. It's a little more rocky. And when we were climbing up the stairs, some of them would be 3 inches, some would be 8 inches, some would be shallow, some would be deep. And you just say, hey, Mark, this is the bigger one, this is the slower one. And feeling it with my cane and making sure I was steady before I took the step, we were able to get to the top of the mountain.
You know, Mark, you remind me that life is about how we think, how we act, and how we react.
Yes.
Things were given to you that, quite frankly, none of us want. We don't sit and dream about things like this happening. Yet your thoughts were always about moving forward. Your actions were about, I'm open to do whatever I need. And your reaction was not to be stiff and rigid. It was, okay, tripping is okay. Why do you believe that many people out there, business people, realtors, it doesn't matter who they are, they trip a little bit in business. Maybe they make a little mistake and they act like it's this huge, big thing. What advice do you have for them?
I think it goes back from all the prospecting I've done over my career. Like I always say, I've probably done more than most people in my area. And so because of that, I've had some tremendous success, but I've also said more stupid things and dumb things over the time. So I stopped taking myself so seriously, and it was okay to make a mistake. And if I said something that didn't resonate with someone, I could back up and say it again. So having that confidence in yourself is actually important. I think we take ourselves sometimes too serious, and we don't learn to laugh at ourselves. And so that's an important part. Having a good sense of humor allows you to overcome and not take things so personally.
Well, no, that's very good advice. You can't take yourself so seriously. And here you are on this trip.
Yep.
You also said something that was very important for our listeners to hear. You had a
Yes.
leader who reinforced you, encouraged you. How
Hmm.
much empowerment did he give you? And was he by your side at all times or
Yeah.
not?
So I was either holding his arm, or if it got very narrow, then I'd put my hand on his shoulder, so I would be right behind him. So we were taking smaller steps and guiding. And when we first started climbing up to the waterfall, there were a bunch of people behind us. He goes, "Hey, Mark, we're going to stop," and we let people pass us. And this was a really important thing. When things are uncertain and you're not sure, don't be afraid to slow down for a moment, regather your composure, and go at your own pace. If you keep taking action and move forward, you'll get to the other side. If you go too fast and you fall and hurt yourself, you'll never continue. So it's okay to give yourself that grace to collect your thoughts and move forward, because you don't want to quit. And that was the key. Quitting wasn't an option. We just had to figure out how to move forward. And then as we worked together, we both gained more trust. We were actually going pretty quickly, especially at the end when we got to the cave. We made that through the cave pretty quickly, but we really knew how to work together and communicate with each other.
So teamwork is very important. I hear that.
Absolutely.
I also hear don't compare yourself to other people. You weren't saying, oh, they're going so much faster than me. I've got to pick up the pace. You were okay with being who you needed to be at that moment.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I wrote in my letter was it's okay to be vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, it's actually freeing. And so when I didn't care what other people thought and I did it my own way, I made it. And other people kept coming up to me on the trip and said, Mark, I was going to quit. I wasn't going to do that. But I kept saying, if Mark can do it, then how can I quit? And everyone pushed themselves further because of that. And
Yeah, you gave people permission to be vulnerable because
yeah,
vulnerability is a success tool that a lot of people are not willing to use because they have to look good and be right. And
right.
yet, Mark, you've always been vulnerable. You've always been open, and your heart just shows up everywhere that you go because you're very present in the moment. Did you have to teach yourself to be present in the moment, or did it just come naturally to you?
No, no, no. Being an accountant, being more analytical, I definitely used to be, as we talk about the disc and personality types, I was definitely much more of a C personality and had to understand things. And at some point, I learned enough in real estate that now I don't think at all. I just go and have that confidence. So it's actually amazing how you can grow and change and prosper as you could, if you're always working and developing yourself.
Yeah, it is about ourselves because everything has to come from us. We have to fall in love with ourselves, so to speak, right? Now, one question keeps coming to my mind. You took this great trip with waterfalls and beautiful scenery, and you weren't able to really see it. Did they describe it to you? Was it the sounds that made everything come alive?
So when I first went, I didn't quite know what it was. And two friends, there were 33 people on the trip, and we knew two other couples that invited us. And I didn't know, I found out halfway through the tour, it was called an adventure tour, and it was. And if I knew how adventurous it was, I may have chickened out and not done it. So not knowing everything definitely was an advantage. And once I started and I realized I could do it, then I kept going and I accomplished a lot more than I ever thought I could. Now, I didn't answer your question. So what was your question now?
No, it was like, why did you decide to go on a trip that you really couldn't see the scenery?
Oh, so that was great. So one of the things the tour guide did, which was so great, was he like when we were climbing up to the geyser and there were a bunch of trees and roots over our head, he would stop me and say, "Hey, Mark, feel this. This is a root coming down. This is a branch. Feel this. Feel the different leaves that there were." So I got to experience things a little bit differently. And you know what? Just getting out and being able to be physical and do everything was invigorating. And yes, I could hear it, I could smell it, and yes, I didn't see it the same way, but I saw it differently and enjoyed it. Now, one of the
Right.
things we did because been seeing most of my life, so at one point we went to one of the temples overlooking the city. And so my wife says, "Oh, being in Los Angeles, in Hollywood Hills, there's a Japanese restaurant that you can go to the top and oversee the whole city." She goes, "Oh, it looks like that." And we've been to Hawaii many times. "Oh, this is like taking the road to Hana, or this is like going from the airport in Maui along the shore where it's kind of barren, or this is more tropical." So my wife could describe things to me that I've experienced so I could have an understanding of what's going on. So it worked out great.
Yeah, so you can see it, you can, or you can't see it, yet you can smell it, you can touch it, you could taste things, and
And
through
you can
that,
picture it if someone's willing to just take the time to describe it. I'll share one more thing. We went in Thailand, we went to the king's palace. And so when they were describing the different Buddhas and the different shrines and the gold and the jewels and how beautiful they were, so they took the time to explain it, I could picture it. But there's one part when you're there, they have these gorgeous, gorgeous murals that were done. And so one of my friends took me and then was describing it to me step by step what it was. And we did this for 10 or 15 minutes. And I could really see the beauty and how the colors and the details that were there. Now, I didn't need to do it for the whole half hour that everyone else did, but that 10 minutes really gave me enough to really see it and visualize it and picture it.
wow. How much does your heart help you see the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think when we slow down sometimes and look at things differently, all of a sudden we can see different beauty. And I think now that I'm not just looking at things, I get to know the person a little bit better and what their true character is because I'm not making it just on outer appearances. And it was funny, we had a young tour guide, and I was trying to describe what I thought she looked like, and I actually did pretty good, but I thought she had straight hair and she had really curly hair. So it was just funny how, if you close your eyes and you meet someone, how you form a picture and how different it really is from what they really look like.
Yet you tend to paint more beautiful pictures, whereas a lot of people that see bring in the negativity.
Yeah.
It's like you're choosing to redefine what success means. So, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in their circumstances?
I think really we need one of the things I heard really early on, when you're stuck, stop digging. Okay? Stop thinking about it, stop reliving it. All you're doing is making it worse. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, what is the one thing I can do right now that if I take action will move me forward? And just do one small step. And that was a big part of your book, is just take action. And once you take one step, then you can ask yourself, okay, now what's the next thing? And before you know it, you're moving and you're making it to the top of the mountain. So don't try and solve the world's problems all at once. Just do it one step at a time and see where the journey takes you.
You know, you're describing this because you don't have to really see to see life in an extraordinary way. So, can you share a specific moment for us where you just proved to yourself that I don't really have to see everything that's going on to see a great life?
I mean, I think with this trip, it would have been very easy to say, oh, it's too hard. Actually, I'm going to tell a different story. Sorry. So I used to ski a lot, okay? And we'd go up to Mammoth, and every year we would go for Christmas, we would go to Snowmass and ski. And I got to be a very good skier. And then sometime in college, as my vision was getting worse, I stopped skiing. And then we had kids, and we started going, and the kids wanted to go skiing, and I was a little nervous about how can I do it? And so we went skiing, and I realized if I skied along the tree line, I only had to worry about skiers on one side. And if I stopped for a moment, waited till the path was clear, then I could ski down, and then I could look one way across the slope and see if if there was a trailer we were coming into our way, was there anyone going to hit me? And if not, I could just blend in easily. And I was actually a very good skier. I had retained it all. And when I stopped being fearful, I was able to really enjoy it. And so I let my fear in college stop me from skiing. And I continued to ski until probably about 10 years ago because the kids we stopped going on family ski trips. So we can either quit and protect ourselves, or we can try new things and go out and really enjoy life to the fullest.
Well, our brain is always wanting to protect us. So, as your brain was saying, don't do that, you might fall. Don't do that, this may happen to you. What did you say to yourself to overcome all of those fears that your brain was putting inside of you?
I think for me, it's always been take it one step at a time. Just try it, and if you can't do it, you couldn't quit first. You had to at least try it, and that goes back to my father never letting us quit. I mean, they did a lot of traveling, so they always had us eating exotic and crazy stuff over the years. And his thing was, you got to taste it. If you don't like it, then you don't have to eat it anymore, but you have to at least taste it. And so most of the time, once you tasted it, it was different, but enjoyable. And so I think that was just a very important part of my development.
You know, it was programmed in you, yet
Yeah.
each and every one of us can program ourselves that same way. And you're very much an inspiration. In fact, when you called and you sent us a letter and you called us and told us all about the trip, and Tony and I were so excited for you. And of course, I called and said, man, he's got to be on stage. This guy is so good. And you ended up actually at the vision speech with Gary Keller up on stage. Now, were you frightened at all to be up on that stage a little bit, or were you just so
No,
excited?
not really. It's funny because Jay Abrams reached out to me, or Jason Abrams reached out to me. They got my letter, and him and Gary were reading it. And it's too early to get. It was too late to get me on for family reunion, but maybe one of the later events at Mega Camp we could do it. And Jason said, I just want to ask you some questions. And then the next day I got an email and he says, congratulations, you're going to be interviewed on the main stage with Gary during the vision speech. And I asked a couple of questions and they go, are we reading the letter or not reading the letter? I go, don't worry, Gary is master of asking questions. He'll guide you through it. And it wasn't that I was nervous, I just wanted a little understanding. So I never got any questions or anything, just went out, and if you speak from the heart, and again, being a little bit vulnerable, not worrying what you say, then it became very easy. And so as we talked, it just came out. And after we got off stage, the number of people that stopped my daughters and I and just said, that was so helpful and how inspiring that was, really let me know that I have a higher calling and that this is going to be the beginning of a new chapter of my life.
It is. The story of your life up till now is one way, and you have started a new chapter. The thing I'm so excited about is you're holding the pen, and you will continue to hold the pen and write a great story. I do know many people came up to your daughters and said how inspiring it was. What did you feel when you knew the words that you had given to people could help change their life?
It quickly became less about me and the fears I had about sharing my story, and that if I was more authentic and really shared what I had overcome, that I could sell real estate and it wasn't going to be a hindrance. And so that became very important. And in fact, we are now going to be having an event in May where I'm going to come out to all my clients and to my community and really let them know that I am acting and working as a blind realtor, and that how my daughters and I have set up the team, it's actually even better than when I could see. And so that is extremely empowering and exciting. And now I can go back out door knocking with people on my team because now everyone will know and I don't have to hide it anymore. So it was a life-changing experience. And so I'm very excited and thankful and grateful for that.
Well, that vulnerability definitely equals success. I see it over and over and over again. So if someone that's listening to us is facing a challenge right now today, they feel overwhelmed, they feel anxious, they feel stressful, what is one action that they could take today that would help move them forward with their confidence? What words would you give them?
I would say, first of all, it's okay to be scared, but you can't stay scared. So acknowledge that you're afraid, and then start looking at how could you move forward. What would be something you could do, and who can you rely on? Look, we're not alone. I've met great people in first with Tony, then getting to meet you, Dianna, and other great people in my life that have helped me through this journey. And my daughters, my wife, my parents, my friends, my community, my faith are all critical in that. So just remember you're not alone. And if you were not afraid, what would you do next? And just take one step of action, and you're going to find that it works. And if it didn't work out quite the same way, come up with a different way. I mean, I was fortunate. One of the first books I read was John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward. And I have a picture of John Maxwell in my office as one of the people that really shaped me and guided me over the years. And it's really starting with failing forward, that failure never, you're never a failure until the day you quit. And that's just not a word I let resonate very long. And so by not quitting, you can always, and having confidence in yourself, you can always find the right way forward.
So share one more thing with us, Mark.
I mean, it was interesting. I was brought up through Reform Judaism, and my wife was brought up more religious. And as it turned out, we bought a house in a very religious, and there was a Chabad house. And one Saturday, I was in front of my house, and there was a gentleman walking to temple, and my wife said, "Go up and talk to him." And I was too afraid to do it, but we did. And from that, I became a lot more religious. And so after a couple of years of being in real estate, the rabbi came to me and said, "Mark, I think you should stop working on Shabbos." And I said, "There's no way I can do that. I would lose too much business." And so I ended up doing it, and my business doubled, and then it doubled again. And when we have faith, we take time off. It gives us the chance to rejuvenate, and that's why I have such a great relationship with my family, is that we always had Friday night together and Saturdays together where we didn't watch TV, didn't work on our phones, and it just made a big difference. And from that, I go every Saturday when I go to temple, there is a Torah class that starts at 9:30 before the services start at 10. And one of the young rabbis was giving a lesson in December. And it talks about how God never promised us an easy life. Okay? And so and if life is too easy, we never reach our true potential. And as they were talking and explaining it, it's through our challenges, our hardships, that we shape ourselves and become the people we're supposed to be. And that's what's so important. So I don't know why God gave me this disease and why I can't see, but over time it's shaped me, and I'm now becoming a different person, a new person. And from that, now I'm going to be able to help even more people in a different way. And so we can't look back and say, why is this happening to me? We can only look forward and say, what is this new opportunity going to bring to me? And what am I supposed to do from this new challenge, this new experience, to become the true potential God wanted us to become?
You know, Mark, that's so good, because I was on a phone call with John Maxwell and myself. As I said, we've been mentoring some folks, and Kate Papkin is one of them. And we were talking about the ups and downs of life. And Kate made a comment in the chat section. I just had to stop the call and tell everybody. She wrote down, "No one buys a ticket to ride a flat roller coaster." And I thought, doesn't that sum up life? Everybody wants it to be easy. Everybody wants it to go smooth. Yet they wouldn't buy a ticket or pay for a ticket for a flat roller coaster. So why do they want life to be a flat roller coaster?
Right.
These ups and downs help us to help other people in so many ways when we allow them to.
That's the key. You have to be open to it.
That's what you've helped us with today. You've taught us how to allow the things that are given to you in your life, not to just accept them and sit down and go, oh, poor woe is me, and become the victim of your life story. You have actually become the hero of your life story. You've never let the villain of your eyesight being taken away from you, or any villain out there of slippery rocks on your walk, or the waterfall putting water all over you. Nothing was a villain to you because you weren't a victim. And when we're the hero of our own life story, life can be fabulous because we're able to help others like you continue to help us every single day. And I continually see how he inspires them through not allowing them to call it a failure. And you never have called it a failure. You've always learned whatever happened, like the adaptive learning model in the book.
Yeah.
And I thank you for all the great things that you've said about the book. And I continue just to be one of your biggest fans because you
Well, I'm one of your
inspire
biggest
so
fans,
many.
so it's such a pleasure and honor to be here today.
You know what? I could be the president of your fan club, Mark. You are someone that I just admire so much. So everyone that's listening to this, realize that you too can become more, just like Mark. Don't let anything stop him, and he's leading us to think that same way. Just take the next step forward, whatever that step is. And if it's the wrong step, correct it. Pivot.
Exactly.
Do whatever you need. Mark, thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything that I failed to ask you that you wish I would have asked you, or any last minute things you want to say?
There's just one thing that comes into mind. Like I mentioned, there have been some great people in my life, and at the time, I didn't quite understand why they came into my life. And now, 30 years later, I can see the influence they had, and they were only helping to prepare me for this moment. And that's the key. If you're always open to seeking answers, you may not understand or why it's happening, but if you keep an open mind, the answers will appear if you have an open mind.
That's so good. We can't connect the dots going backwards. We can
Right.
connect them going forward. And for all of you that would like to subscribe, hit that subscription button, because this podcast is all about you becoming more by learning how others continue to become more. Mark, you're a great example of becoming more each and every day. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Becoming More.